Greetings, YouTube. So, inspired by my repurposing video I did a while back, I've been thinking about how can we retool other aspects of the game. And I can't remember where it was, but somebody was talking about trolls. And in particular, we're talking about like the troll social structures and things like that. And it got me thinking, what if trolls don't have conventional breeding? What about if trolls just bud? Or at least they make deliberate choices to sever portions of their body to create offspring, which they then raise, essentially becoming a parent. So trolls would be sexless. They would have no sexes. They would have no gender. They would just be trolls. Um, and if you were to uh, look for the undercarriage, there would be no functional genitalia, maybe just holes for excreting bodily waste. Maybe trolls don't excrete bodily waste. Maybe they consume and just get bigger. Who knows? But the idea here is that there are no male trolls and no female trolls. There are no troll cultures in the sense that they don't form nuclear families because they just decide they're going to have an offspring. They have an offspring. Now, trolls aren't particularly bright. Looking at the Pathfinder 1st edition and the 5th edition, but they both agree they have a -2 intelligence. Interestingly, the 5th edition makes them weaker both in strength and con, but a point smarter, which doesn't affect the bonus or the penalty rather. But they're got more hit points, so that's kind of interesting that their con is lower, but they've got more hit points. And I will admit that I'm just looking at the online resources, so it's the online stat blocks, and I don't know how the online stat block for 5th edition compares to the actual book. I haven't got around to reading that yet. I'm currently reading the Player's Handbook, chugging my way through the spell section. But the 5th edition stat block is a hell of a lot cleaner. I will give them kudos for that. So what if trolls decide at some point in their life that I would like to have an offspring? Maybe they get an urge. Maybe they have a certain point in their life where they get a certain itch, literally, and they lop off a hand. Because a hand is vaguely humanoid. And the hand becomes a troll. Maybe trolls have tails. Tail. Legs. Arms. And the head comes out here after it's been severed. So in this world, trolls have tails. And they become ambulatory hands. They chop it off, it lays there, it begins to regenerate, and boonk, within, X number of hours, it is a small troll, which then bonds to its parent, and then is raised by the parent. And a parent could very well be in a situation where it's a single offspring is raised at a time, which it could explain why the troll populations aren't really high. And once the offspring gets to a certain age, it goes off and takes off, and maybe the troll parent then decides they would like to have another offspring, repeat as necessary. And trolls, because they regenerate so much, maybe they don't ever die. They just keep existing. Maybe they only get the itch every 5 or 10 years to do this. Say they only get that itch every 20 years, and it takes them 10 years to raise an offspring. Maybe just 5 years, because they probably pretty rapid. I could imagine pretty rapid development for a troll, both physically and mentally. It doesn't have to be all that smart, or there isn't a great deal of complexity to a troll's lifestyle. Kill things and eat them. Though they are smart enough to do things like acquire weapons and armor. Trolls are that smart, and they are never really presented that way in most games. For example, they just give a natural armor class under the 5th, and then under the Pathfinder 1st edition, they break down the armor class, but it's all based on the natural armor class. There's nothing about carrying a shield, which is a passive bonus in PE1 and 5th edition, but it's an active bonus in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which I thought was interesting. So there isn't any reason they couldn't use weapons and armor and shields and things like that. So maybe they pick that up from their victims, or they bump into societies often enough to figure out what's going on. I have to freely admit, I also find the whole concept that they are always presented as chaotic evil really bothers the hell out of me. I don't like biologically determined alignments, and trolls are biological entities. Even if they are supposed to be like vaguely, fey adjacent in the sense that they're truly magical beasts that have no, biological, counterpart in our world, just like fairies and pseudo dragons and stuff don't. It still bothers me that biological beings, not stuff from like elemental planes or the celestial plane or from the lower planes or for something like that, but biological creatures shouldn't have alignments. Now you could say that they are chaotic neutral in the sense that they are very self-centered. A troll only cares about what it needs at that moment, which is completely appropriate. But that doesn't necessarily mean evil. If a troll kills a person but doesn't understand that that is a person, is that evil? Said they'd never encountered one before. But then they learn that they're people, that they're just like it in the sense that they think and feel and things like that. And they decide, I don't want to do that. And then they just kill animals. Now, this could still, of course, cause conflict, because if the animals they choose are like somebody's sheep or their cow, that's going to cause a problem. But it doesn't necessarily mean evil if they're trying to kill an animal for food. And who says that there are trolls out there that never get near society? They're out there in the wilderness. The only time they ever see, a humanoid member of any species, it's when they're encountering, druids and rangers, and they pretty much ignore them. I'm very much bothered by the whole biologically determined alignment. And I think if I'm going to retool it, I'm going to retool them to make them chaotic neutral, or I guess in some versions of the game, you would say they are unaligned. But I like chaotic neutral, very self-centered, thinking about its needs and wants at that moment, and not really having a great deal of concern about other individuals. But it could understand what is truly good and what is truly evil. Maybe they don't want to donate money to the orphanage, which would be an overtly good act. But it also doesn't say they don't necessarily want to kill the peasant because, the stuff on the inside of its skull is gooey and tasty. There should be a happy medium, and I think that I like the idea of them being that way. So we've got a troll that there is no male or female. It's a sexless species. They breed by cutting off a hand, which then sprouts into a small troll and then is raised by the parent troll until it goes off into the world on its own. They don't have a biologically determined alignment. We're just going to say they're chaotic neutral. They look at the world from a very selfish lens. They only think of trolls. And maybe it takes a while for them to figure out that other things have sapience and have sentience. Other things think and feel. That the other humanoid thing that kind of looks like me should be treated like me. I should, I don't want to get hit. Maybe they don't want to get hit. That kind of concept. I also think we should maybe throw in here the idea that there is no troll kin concept. So you're not going to have any humanoid subspecies of people or other humanoids that are related to the trolls, with an exception. Because they don't breed, you can't have an ogre and a troll having an offspring, or a human and a troll having an offspring. So you can't produce blood kin in that way. But what if you can acquire troll blood? Okay? And the troll blood can be alchemically modified. And then it becomes a super soldier formula. So you shoot up a dose of this, and you begin to acquire some of the characteristics of a troll without losing your characteristics as an ogre or a person or a half-orc or whatever the heck you are. but you pick up its dark vision and maybe a minor claw attack, maybe a minor bite attack, and maybe you get a little bit stronger, a little bit tougher, but your intelligence and wisdom and charisma may come down a little, and you pick up a regeneration. Now, they have in 5th edition, it just says, I kind of like the way they do it. They made it very, very pedantic. It says at the beginning of each turn, a troll heals 10 hit points. That's very clear. And I kind of like that because, let's face it, if there's a way to misinterpret a rule, gamers will, and if there's a way to misinterpret a rule in your favor, people will lie about not doing that, and they'll just say, oh, I didn't know that, when in reality, of course, they're misinterpreting the rules in their favor. So this makes it very clear that at the beginning of the turn, bing, you get 10 hit points. So maybe a trollkin only gets 5, or maybe even less than that, depends on how farther along they are in the process of becoming a troll. Maybe you have to take doses of this to get to become a full-blown half troll. But I like that idea. And I can remember way back, I think it was like 80 or 82, where I read something about troll in a can. And the concept was that you would have a can, you'd open the can, and it would begin to regenerate meat because it was troll meat. And you would cut off what you want, and you slap the lid back on, and then you'd have troll. Which is funny, but really warped and twisted because you're committing an act of cannibalism. If you were eating the flesh of a sapient being, that's an act of cannibalism to me. Doesn't matter that you're not the same species. Doesn't even matter if it's a dragon. If you were eating the flesh of a sapient being, knowing it's a sapient being, that's an act of cannibalism, in my opinion. In a fantasy world, obviously. We don't have that here. In this world, it only counts if you're eating people. So you could still have the half-troll trollkin vibe without having the breeding aspect. It just people would have to deliberately do it. Instead of just being a byproduct of sexual union, it becomes a deliberate act. So it's still kind of be a cool idea. There are warriors out there who would sign up for that. There are barbarians who be like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay if I'm not as bright and as wise and as charismatic as my buddy, if it means that I am larger and stronger and tougher and I regenerate 5 hit points at the beginning of every round. You know, that's, if you're a barbarian, that's a lifesaver, literally. So there would be people out there that would definitely want to become a trollkin, even if they had not come from a lineage of trollkin. So these are just some ideas I'm floating around in my head. I haven't actually done anything with them. This is just me pondering from what I've been thinking about while I was making hundreds of pointless parts at work. Yay, capitalism. But so let's talk about repurposing trolls. And I'm probably going to revisit this idea in other ideas in the future. I'm going to start playing around with some other creature ideas. I think I want to touch on. But right now we're talking about retooling the troll into something slightly different in a fresh perspective. I don't know if it's a fresh perspective. Maybe I'm completely off board on this one. Maybe other people have done this long before I have. It's a really big world out there. So let's talk about repurposing the troll, how you would rethink the troll if you were going to be designing the troll anew. If you're the first person to ever introduce a troll to a high fantasy or even a low fantasy setting or a grim and gritty fantasy setting, whatever, a fantasy setting, if you're the one introducing the troll right off the bat, how would you do it?